Right, we are live. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Kiwi Lads channel. In this video or live stream, we are going to be doing this post-match review of the match that did take place between Australia and South Africa. Now, we are a little bit later with this post-match review. We have just seen the matchup take place between New Zealand and Argentina. And all I can say, we had a couple big upsets for this week of the Rugby Championship, which is always great to see. We do love to see it be thrown around a little bit. So currently on the table, Argentina, they are sitting in first, Australia in second, New Zealand in third, and then South Africa, they are in fourth. But looking at the result of this game, 25 points to 7. Now, we've got to try and remember what happened in that game, as we have seen that All Blacks won. But I believe the main gist of this game between South Africa and Australia was South Africa just never quite got themselves into the game as much as they would have liked to. They had a lot of kicks where they gave the possession away to Australia. Fraser McWright was doing sensationally early on, actually managed to bag himself the 2 tries in the end. In fact, I'll scroll down a little bit. There we go. Those are the try scorers. We saw Quaha Smith also get 2 tries late in the game. A couple early missed penalties from Andre Pollard, which was a little bit uncharacteristic or uncharacter-like for Andre Pollard. And Fozzie for Prime Minister. Foster needs to go, says Shane. And also we have got Springboks haven't been playing like the world champions in the last 2 years, says Edward. Yeah, they're in a little bit of a, like I described on the last live stream, there's a roller coaster effect happening for a lot of these sides. Australia have found that roller coaster, how you have a good week, bad week, good week, bad week. New Zealand, they've found that one, good week, bad week, good week. And then also, the moment you'd say South Africa are also in the good week, bad week. I didn't really want to repeat it every time, but the other side of things is Argentina, for me, they had a bad week, and then they went good, and then they went good. So they are actually, I would say, out of anyone, the informed side of the Rugby Championship. And I look forward to seeing what they can do next week up against the All Blacks as well. But Australia, they were able to get themselves those 25 points early on, putting on extra pressure on the breakdown. The thing is, Joseph Dweber, he had a little bit of a shocker at the start. He did have that not straight line out. But after that, I thought he started to find a little bit more of his momentum. Although Malcolm Marx, he came on the field when we did see that little bit of a blood bin that Joseph Dweber experienced. But the bomb squad, they were effective. Kitsoff and Vincent Koch, they were working together beautifully. And something we saw a little bit more of was actually the locks and the props from the Springboks. We didn't see a huge amount of Lucanio Arm or Damien Dialende. Makazolema Pimpi was still prominent, although there was a try-saving tackle on him by Marika Korombedi, which the more that I watch it, I see the more that it was a shoulder charge. But at the time, they did rule it as fair play. Also, we did see Faf de Klerk get himself a yellow card for hitting Nick White in the face, who didn't really do the best job when it came to the acting of when he was struck. He kind of fell over about 2 or 3 steps back, and that was why that was a yellow card. We also saw a yellow card for Tom Wright a bit earlier on for a cynical play. Why doesn't Malcolm Marx start? That's a travesty, says Joe Webby. It is a shame, because the thing is, it's always down to, would you rather have Malcolm Marx start and play 60 minutes and give the last 20 to Dweber, or would you rather give the first 30 to Dweber and then give the last 50 to Malcolm Marx? It's quite a hard one to balance. I would have loved to see a third choice hooker in there as well. So it would have been nice to see anyone such as Skara Untabeni, I heard was a name someone mentioned, just so that there's a bit less pressure on Dweber, because at the end of the day, knowing he's one of 2 hookers, like, that plays on your mind. You think if you play badly, if you've got more players in your squad, you can just take a step aside, something that Cody Taylor might consider doing. And No TV says so. And also here says BC Bent, and even South Africa coach admitted it without saying that. And did the game change much when Pollard went off? I saw a bit more from Elton Yankees. He did get penalised straight away, unfortunately. But it's still a tricky one. I think the momentum by that point was gone, although you'd have to argue Quaha Smith scoring the 2 tries after Elton Yankees has made his way onto the park. Franz Steyn at the back did look like he was still trying to get back up to the fitness that we expect to see from him. Dweber has got to be dumped, says Annoy, although with only the 2 options, he's going to be there in either the first position, starting at number 2, or coming off the bench at 16 in the next game, more than likely as well. But I liked what Vincent Koch and Stephen Kitsoff did. I would go as far as saying Vincent Koch, probably keep him on the bench, have Franz Malhabra start, but I would add Stephen Kitsoff into the starting lineup rather than Oxnechet. They've also got Trevor Nakanye as an option. Nechet was decent with his running lines, I did feel, though. And scrummaging was a bit of a lottery in the game. There were a lot of penalties against both sides. Looking through some of the stats for this contest, Springboks had 424 metres carried, which just shows that when they were running the ball, it was very effective. 24 defenders beaten and 7 clean breaks compared to the Wallabies. 266 metres carried, 75 carries, 14 defenders beaten, and the 3 clean breaks for the Wallabies. But South Africa, when they ran the ball, it was looking very good. 104 tackles made, missing the 14, so not too bad in that department. But the penalties conceded, 15 against the Wallabies. They did end up with 2 yellow cards in the end. And then also the 9 penalties against the Springboks, the 1 yellow card against them. I'm looking forward to seeing who has the most player stat running meters, though. Reece Hodge, he had 28. Tom Wright, 37. 30 for Noel Olesio. 29 for Rob Valentini. So no huge numbers for the Wallabies. And then 21 for Pete Samu. Then for the Springboks, it was actually pretty well evenly spread. Kwaka Smith had 57 after coming off the bench. Francois Steyn had 48. And then in the starting lineup, Damian Valimza, he had 60 metres carried when he did carry the 10 times and 2 defenders beat him. Thoughts on Faf's yellow card? It's an interesting one. The rule book is written that you're not allowed to make contact with someone's head. The way that Nick White handled the situation, I think, is something that made a lot of people turn against it. So I'd probably say it was still at least a penalty. Could have been a yellow card, but I would have preferred to see Nick White continue with the game and then after it stopped, go, hey, I was hit in the face. Can we look at it? Rather than taking a few steps back and then just sitting on the ground like he was like a child left behind, really, or like someone who wasn't getting the sweets that they wanted. He just, ref, I've been hit in the face, rather than just continuing. Faf de Klerk actually got a good shot into him while he was on the ground as well, and I feel like that one was justified. And why the All Blacks so bad, says Ollie, it seems to be the handling errors and the penalties against them that seem to be costing them big time. Something we could say similar for the Wallabies. If they had not had those few tries scored, could have been a whole different story in the game. Richie's goal kicking was off, says Shane. And yeah, Richie Moore, he just didn't seem to find that momentum that he did when playing up against the Springboks, which was a bit disappointing. The Wallabies have a good squad to pick from, even with the injuries. The thing that lets them down is discipline, says Joe Webby. And the Springboks had quite a few handling errors as well, is another point that I should make in this one. So they will want to improve on that for their next game next week. They are going to be playing at 9:35 p.m., but more than likely 9:50 p.m. because they're always late for the Australian games. And 7:05 will be when the Kiwis do kick off. And Nick Phipps agree with the rule changes and the ref's decisions do make a mockery of the game. I actually felt, I know a few people said otherwise, but the Argentina versus New Zealand referee, I thought did pretty well. He was strict enough that you knew where the line was, but he wasn't as loosey-goosey as some of them can be. So you kind of knew what you could get away with and what you couldn't, and rule changes to protect our players. And the Boks are fielding too many players who are returning from injury at once, and a couple of the players out of form, says Christian. Yeah, for me, Kwaka Smith earns a spot in the starting lineup. Dwayne Vermeulen, I liked what he did when he took that quick tap and threw himself at the line. It did actually result in that Tom Wright yellow card, but I think Kwaka Smith is my man at number 8. Yes, Pavisa off the bench. And then if they do go with that 6-2 split, which may not be a bad idea, as they did make their subs relatively early, maybe you also chuck Dwayne Vermeulen in there for good measure to try and have a bit more of an impact late in the game. I think it's because his knee's already on the ground and it'd be a bad angle for anybody to tackle him anyway, says Ed. And there as well. Yeah, 25 points to 17. So an 8-point difference between those two sides, which does mean the Springboks, they don't get the bonus point, hence why they are now sitting in 4th rather than 3rd, similar to the All Blacks, because they were able to get that bonus point, losing bonus point that is, up against Argentina, because they did lose by the 7. But 2 very close games in terms of the scoreboard, 25 to 17 in this game and 25-18 in the game between New Zealand and Argentina, which is always very exciting. We love a close game, and I think it's just shown how close this Rugby Championship is going to be. And Argentina are probably going to win the Rugby Championship. Imagine the scenes if they were able to do so. I would be one of the first people to say they deserve it because they have had to fight hard. We've got to remember, they were on the road for pretty much 2 years while we were in COVID times. No matter where it was, they'd head to Wales. they'd head down south and down under to New Zealand, Australia. They'd go to South Africa. They've been everywhere in the last little while, but not once do they seem like they're disheartened. They keep on going. They've got a great team building. I think at the moment, with Michael Cheika as one of the coaches, seems to be doing wonders for them. Marika and Fraser had a wonderful night, though, says Ed Vogel. Yeah, they were the two standouts for me of the Wallabies. If I had to pick any other player for the Wallabies who I thought stood up quite well, you'd probably go actually Noah Lolesio. He had a very good game. His kicking's come a long way in the 6 or 12 months since everyone was saying he never deserves to be that number 10 for the Wallabies again. I think these injuries are a blessing in disguise for Lolesio to show that he has been working on his game so much. He's only 22, got such a bright future. I think he has got a cap for the Wallabies next week at number 10, I would think. And if they do need to change anything, I would probably go Bernard Foley off the bench and go with your 5-3 split. I'd rather Argentina win it than the other two sides, says Nazi Williams. And what changes would you make to the New Zealand team from this going into next week, says Ollie. So of the team, hang on, I'm actually going to have a look through. We'll go here, and we'll scroll up to the Wallabies. Where are they? The New Zealanders. We are doing, aren't we? Right. So for me, first of all, Will Jordan out on the wing, I think is a big waste of time. The boy, he touched the ball twice. What's he going to do with that? Not a lot. So I would either have Will Jordan at 15 rather than Geordie Barrett, or have him come off the bench as a sub and then rearrange so that you do get him still playing 15. So that is where I think he needs to be. Sam Cane, I felt he was a little bit slow today. So I would give Dalton Papali'i a crack at number 7. Or if they want to be bold, go Artie Savia, number 7, Hosson Tutu at number 8. I think everyone else in that type 5 didn't go too badly. The group played well, I thought. Samasoni Takiaho, he was impressive at times. Lomax put in a good shift for that first half. Whitelock and Barrett, you could probably say that Barrett was a bit more quiet than they would have liked him to be. Frizzell, we knew he was going to be feisty up against the Argentines. He went all right. Overall, he didn't have a massive game. He didn't have a terrible game. At the same time, Caleb Clark looked good. Did have to search for that ball a little bit. Rico Ioane should still pass the ball. Just a little tip for him there. He had a few opportunities that he could have unleashed the men on his outside, but he decided instead just take the contact. Phillip and Slipper also played very well. And Alessio was great. Lots of potential, said Red 7. Have you checked Leicester game? Says Ed. I assume, are we talking about Leicester versus Chelsea? If I'm not wrong, Ed, because I think I have been almost talked into doing the cricket during the stage that game will be on. But we are going to be doing the 7s as well later on. How's the debutant's performance? Not enough mins, says Ed. How's the debutant performance? I assume we're talking Stephen Perofeta. I think he was he the only debut of the weekend? And if he was, it was a shame. 40 seconds when your team's on defense. I feel so bad for the guy because forever he will be known as, like, no one looks at the fact that he played for 40 seconds. Everyone goes, you lost your first game to Argentina on your record. So he's got a 0% win rate at the moment. So I feel bad for him. How did Callaway play? He didn't look too bad. Seemed very scrappy in the breakdowns, like he was ready to try and get through and get the penalty, but he did miss out a few times. And also the Leicester Tigers, says Ed. When are they playing? Are they playing now, Ed, in pre-season, is it? And Cheika is showing his abilities and also came out, no disrespect. And front row came off way too early. Disappointed with the Box loss, but the Pumas win has made my day, says Rugby Itch. And I would like to see Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. And it kind of reminded me of Tuivasa-Sheck's debut, how they gave him like 5 minutes at the end of a game that was already lost and said, see if you can fix this for us. Whereas Peter Feta, he wasn't even given a chance. And discussing that should have let him off or left him off. Yeah, that would have been a lot more admirable if they went right. Because you know it's going to be a question. And 40 seconds like Vunivalu's debut versus England, exactly right. He only got a minute or two to show off, one run? At least he touched the ball, I guess, is a good thing. Not even a minute. Hope the fella had other chances. See, for me to make it right, I'd start him at 15 up against the Pumas for the second game. Don't steal that one, Rugby Itch. I'm writing that down for my lineup prediction. I would start Roger Tuivasa-Sheck at number 12. Yeah, I think he is due for an opportunity. Just because Havili in this game was nowhere near effective as he was up against the Springboks. Tupaira off the bench didn't look too bad, just didn't get enough time to be able to really get going. And also switching again, says Nathan in New Zealand will pulverise Argentina next week, says Far. And the guys, it just doesn't work in a coaching environment, says Jane. And also we have got there, should have left him off, but I was saying about for Perofeta, worst comes to worst, you go into the media and you say, we didn't judge the game well, but that's the thing. There's no accountability, because I feel like they'd earn a lot of respect if they were like, we kind of lost track of the time a little bit. We thought we would wait for the perfect opportunity to give him his debut. The opportunity didn't arise. He's going to get it next week instead. All you got to say, and everyone would go, okay, it's been unfortunate that he didn't get to play coming off the bench, but at least he didn't get 40 seconds. You reckon Ian Foster will get sacked now? No, not quite, because he's got to resign, because or else then they have to pay him a whole heap of money, and they don't want to do that. They don't like paying money at all. And bring in some fresh players from the Bunnings NPC. I'm disappointed to see that Cullen Grace is injured, because he's been going very well, and I think he was another choice for loose forward trio. Could have had a good opportunity. I do believe the coaches of South Africa are targeting the World Cup, says Nick. Yeah, I do enjoy the fact that South Africa are looking towards the future. They're trying to build that depth, work out what their squad's going to be. Like, slowly they'll have players being ticked on their list. I just realized my hand was too low. I'm currently ticking my hand. So you've got Malcolm Marx. He's got a tick next to him. Franz Malherba, I believe, will be there at the World Cup. Eben Etzebeth, Lud Diaka, Peter Steftatoy, Sia Khaleesi, and they're going through trying to work out exactly what their man squad is going to be. Evan Bruce, he's down the bottom of the list. Is he still making his way up there? We're going to give him a go in the November internationals, and hopefully does go all right and make his way into that squad. So I think they're always looking towards what's next for the Springboks, which is why when people say sack the Springboks coach, I mean, I can understand they don't like the losing side of things, but you've also got to look at it to the other side, how if they do have a plan and that plan does take effect over a couple years, you've got to give them that time to get to that plan, because restarting it now, this close to a World Cup, could be crucial in terms of how they finish. And JP has said Foster is a selfish prick. And bang on, Webby says Nazi there. And you're looking, or we're looking to other players coming in and getting a go, but forgetting Kane is way down the list as our best flanker. He's taken up space that would boost our side, or taken up the space that would boost our side. Yeah, because Hoskins Tutu, surely that man gets an opportunity at some point. Rate both teams' performances in this game. We'll do Argentina and New Zealand as well. This game, South Africa, I'm sorry, this is going to sound harsh, but they got to have about a 3. They drop the ball way too often. Their running game was good. In fact, I'll go to a 4 because of that running game, but they did kick that ball away a little bit too often. Quaka Smith, he turned it around at the end when he came off the bench, but they just didn't seem clinical enough in the early stages of the contest, taking 74 minutes to be able to score their first try. Then for Australia, I would give them a solid 7. There is room for improvement. The handling, it wasn't too bad for Australia, but the cards was something they need to work on, and the discipline. They gave away about 15 penalties in that match. Then we look at Argentina, New Zealand. I'd give Argentina an 8 out of 10, very solid, and I'd give the All Blacks probably about a 4 or a 5 as well. They had moments. In fact, I'd probably go All Blacks lower than the Springboks. Say the All Blacks get a 3.5. I would say 2 below performances by South Africa is a mystery, says Joe. And disappointed with the recent performances by the Boks. We are much, much better than those performances show. On the bright side, we've shown bits and pieces of areas where we have improved. They're cited, Lukanyu Arm in the back line. We didn't see too much of him in this game, but he has shown pretty much that class that the back line of the Springboks can have. Damian Valimza, he's another one that I would be clicking on the list. Lukanyu Arm, Damian Dialende, and then trying to find someone to go out on the other wing. I mean, Warwick Halland, he only had 3 carries, 3 meters made in that time. And our execution was poor today. Too many handling errors, and we tend to dip in confidence when our fly half has an off day with the boot. Yeah, Andre Pollard, it was weird seeing him miss because he's had such a brilliant time throughout it. And did the Boks bring Visa, the number 8, on tour? I believe he's on tour, but he didn't play in that first match. Second game, I'll go Quaka Smith as my starter and Jesper Visa to come off the bench, unless they do go Jesper Visa in the starting lineup and have Smith to close out the games. Wallabies' weakness has always been giving opponents penalties and arm playing valiantly, says Alice there. And also, have you heard of Hassan Sullivan? I have indeed, but the thing is, if this is how they're going to treat Stephen Perofeta, I do not want Hassan Sullivan to get a call up as of yet, because or else I think they're going to waste him, and it's just going to put him off completely. He'll go overseas. He'll make plenty of money, but Yeah. I don't think he can get a call-up as of yet. He's a bright talent. Same with Ruben Love. I would hate to see them call up Ruben Love and then just not give him an opportunity at all, because they've got Bowden Barrett, they've got Richie Mo'unga, and there's some young guys in New Zealand who, even though some of the coaches don't want to admit it, they're the future. Ruben Love, Balin Sullivan, Zahn Sullivan. Also, when you look at guys out on the wing, maybe a Salisi Reasi in the future could have a good crack. A few of those loose forwards coming a long way. Tom Christie, a youngster, Cullen Grace. And also in that front row, you've got a few big guys. We've seen the effectiveness of having Ethan de Groot and also Fletcher Newell in the side. Two very young guys who have got bright futures. And Kwaka needs to start next game. See side, and it wasn't Mark Talia in the squad. He was there as a training reserve just in case. And also he's the only player, or he's only one player, but they have missed Kurtley Arinsert. And also, if we're going even bigger than that, Cheslin Colby. We have not seen that man play New Zealand or Australia in quite some time. Being professionals our way, they lost track of the time. If they did, they shouldn't be there, says Nazi Williams. Yeah, I think they were just waiting for the perfect time to bring him on, and it just never quite worked out. Also, Box will struggle if Etzebeth is missing and Mark Talia playing Bunnings NBC, says Nathan. And Vunivalu has only got a few minutes in his debut. Also only got a few minutes for his debut, says Edward. But the worst part is everyone goes, he got a few minutes on his debut. So to the Wallabies, they lost that game, didn't they? So everyone's gone, oh, well, he lost a game. We might as well not play him anymore. But I feel like he would be a perfect example of a player who would be beneficial for the Wallabies. He's got under the high ball, something where we did see a little bit of the scrapping top 5 number 8s in the world in 2022, says Ollie. And also, we did have the Apollo missed crucial tackles at Ellis Park, and today again, says Zebin. So I guess, is it the question of, does Yankees get a little bit of a shout now, or is he still down the pecking order and they just need Pollard to be performing to be able to have good games? I think all the top teams will be extra cautious with injuries going into the World Cup year. Says Side, yeah, you certainly want a big squad, because if you have a small one, could find yourself in the deep water, like we're seeing for South Africa. 2 hookers in this tour, and one of them isn't performing. So now what's the plan for them? Do you start Weber, or do you have him come off the bench? Still a big question. If the Wallabies play the defence like today, for the rest of the matches, they could win the comp, says Ed. And I think all the top teams will be extra cautious with injuries. Oh, no, I read that one. And what's your top 5 number 8s in the world in 2022? Oh, okay. Number 8, Savia's got to be on there. I would agree that Jesper Wiese is up there currently. Rob Valentini, he's been looking pretty impressive. I've gone with 3 Southern Hemisphere boys. I need to head north. I wouldn't give it to Geelong, I don't think. He's been good, but I don't know whether he's been that good. Gregory Eldred, not too bad at the moment. Ireland, you're looking at... Oh, Talupe Faletau, when he's having game time's normally pretty solid. But I would say for Ireland, you're probably looking more at... I mean, Caelan Doris sometimes plays 8, but then they also go with Jack Conan. So I think one of those 2 Irishmen would get a shout. And then, yeah, would it be hard to pick the 5th? Pablo Matera, actually, I would go with. Sorry, I probably startled a few people how I all of a sudden shouted Pablo Matera. You forgot his name, but the German flanker from Ox, seems he's got more go than Kane. So that would be, I believe, I can see him, Anton Segner. That's the one in 2023 World Cup. Best chance for Northern Hemisphere team to win another World Cup. And Savia, not a number 8. He's not, yet he's still playing like one of the best. So imagine what he could do at 7 if he was there. And then you could go Hoskins or Tutu at 8. You could bring in Luke Jacobson, maybe Cullen Grace when he's back from his shoulder injury. And Aldred up there, says Thomas Fletcher. In there as well. Who else have we got in the top rankings? I'm trying to think of all the top teams around the world. We got any other teams we've missed? I think we're close to all of the teams covered. And France, most likely biggest threat from the Northern Hemisphere at line number 8. Chuck some coin on that, says Nazi Williams. And we have plenty of forward spot on. Thomas Fletcher, says Joe Webby. And the All Blacks coach needs to be sacked, says James. And missing Joe Moody, Ethan Blackadder, and Anton Leonard-Brown. I've said it many times throughout the season. You guys are probably sick of hearing me say it. This year has shown how much the All Blacks need Ethan Blackadder. Because even though he's such a young guy in the All Blacks environment, he's a workhorse. He won't give up no matter what the score is. He'll put in big hits. He'll take a few back. But he always puts in 110% out there on the park. And that's what they need. They need a loose forward who's going to be willing to take those big hits and who's going to be visible no matter whether the All Blacks are well and truly in momentum or well and truly behind. How do you think the All Blacks are looking for the World Cup next first match against France? It's going to be interesting. See how they go. I hope they find a little bit more form and a few less penalties than they did in this game up against Argentina. But yeah, it should be good. I'm looking forward to it. We are actually going to be doing the commentary for all of those matches as well. But nonetheless, do thank you all very much for tuning in. Or how many season players are available in the AB squad? Says Sider. I think they're missing quite a few due to the injuries. So they have had to make quite a few changes. There's a few guys who are, I guess, soon to be in there, maybe. But yeah, it's weird. It's all these injuries that make it hard to track who is actually available and who isn't. Because some of these guys are playing for their provinces, such as Counties Manukau. They have got Dalton Papali and Hoskins Tutu. Then also another player who's playing counties, well, not counties, sorry, playing provincial rugby is Roger Tuivasa Sheik. Perafeta was. I would have much preferred seeing Perafeta play tomorrow for Wellington than I did seeing him play for the All Blacks today, which sounds brutal, but I didn't realise they were going to give him 40 seconds try and go out there. He's a combination of his dad, Todd Blackadder, and Richie McCaw, says Nathan. And so England's winning tour over Australia suddenly looks the best of the Northern Hemisphere summer. Here's Ollie. And there, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it ends up developing as we see these sides play more and more. And what do you think of the Wallabies captain? James Slipper, I thought, did enough today to keep that captaincy. Seemed to be relatively in check when it came to those scrums. We didn't really see either side dominate in that department, so that was handy for both of them. But yeah, I think he's going to be there for a little bit longer. He's got 120 caps currently. We'll be adding a few more to that list as well. But nonetheless, I think that is almost going to be the end of this live preview, or live review, I should say, and can't see any real threat from this comp for the World Cup. Sorry, I couldn't help myself there, says Flesh, and that's all right. At the end of the day, you're not wrong, really. Other than, I mean, Argentina for me are probably the team that's looking the most dangerous out of the Rugby Championship. How many overseas players did the AB choose this year? Says Ed. I don't think they actually chose any. They didn't go Damian McKenzie. No Lachlan Boshier. They didn't go Perenara. No Ash Dixon, of course, because he wasn't in there anyway. Have we got any players who played overseas this year? Maybe not. And do you think Wales have what it takes, says Matt Dixon? And also, Box struggle with rolling mauls. I think teams have worked them out now, says Cited. Although, that's another one for Laufeing. I feel should have had a yellow card against him when he came in completely through the side and shut down that rolling maul with the Springboks. He was very lucky. And the thing is, a few minutes later, that was actually when we saw the Faf de Klerk yellow card. So if they had gotten that initial try, maybe it would have been, oh, no, Patrick Tuipulotu, currently neck injury. So he has been taken back out of the side, unfortunately. So he is probably the only one who has had any game time who did play overseas rugby for them. But yeah, now neck injury, so he is in rehab for that neck. And while almost the same score as the All Blacks versus Pumas, yeah, very even, only the 8 points difference between these two, 7 points between the other two. Ian Foster is easy to read. His game plan hasn't changed much, and Box seem to have no plan B. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the kicking today, to be honest. We saw how dangerous they could be when they ran the ball back. And the same can be said about Australia, which is why Australia didn't want to give up that ball as easily. They were more territory kicking, whereas Springboks, it seemed like they were more kicking for the sake of kicking, which I'm not sure about that tactic yet. It hasn't completely grown on me, but we'll have to see whether or not it does improve in the future. And lots of injuries to big players, says Saita Canvas. And honestly, no, who knows? We're always there or about, says Flesh. And yeah, as long as you're in the top two for your grouping, I guess the biggest challenge for Wales is probably Fiji in that group stage. And true, Wales always seem to have an unluckiest draws, in my opinion. And 25-17 and 25-18. My voice is about to disappear. But later on tonight, I believe we want to do England versus South Africa for the test match. So hopefully we will be able to do that. And it does go relatively smoothly for ourselves. Currently, the new day has started for the cricket. So we will get back into that for session 2. That will be at about 12:40 a.m. And then we have got the sevens coming up a bit later on. After that, Lachlan Boshier never got a crack. I was on fire 2 years ago, says Thomas Fletcher. Yeah, it's a shame that he didn't get to play. And to be fair, number 6, who's able to get turnovers in the breakdown, wouldn't be a bad thing for the All Blacks at this current point in time. And the problem is kicking with purpose, and both teams had no purpose this cited. And it's amazing how many players can't catch high balls anymore, says Joe Webby. Although you do see a lot more off the ball stuff, if that makes sense. Like you see a lot more little pushes and little bits of blocking, shepherding and whatnot. They just don't normally get called as penalties. But you do see a lot of guys making a lot more contact with the running man going forward to try and get it. ABs will bounce back, just like the Boks will next week. What is a good thing meaning, or which is a good thing, meaning we have a great footy. We have a good footy, and that's the thing. Rugby Championship, if every team has 2 wins after 2 rounds, or 4 rounds, sorry, that will be absolutely epic heading into the Bledisloe and South Africa versus Argentina. You'd have to argue, if everyone had 2 wins going into the last stages, Argentina, I think the Springboks beat them both games, unfortunately, although one of them in Argentina, so that might help them out very nicely, and depends on how many experienced players in the Welsh squad, says Nathan. And there as well. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning in. Like I mentioned, we have got a little bit later on in the night. We are hopefully going to be doing some cricket. If not, we will be back, though, for the 7s later on. 4:20 a.m. the first game, South Africa versus USA. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Are you going to keep us updated on the cricket, says Ahmad? I am actually going to be going away for a couple hours. But then after that, at 12:40 a.m. New Zealand time, hopefully we will be back to cover session 2. Thanks, Hamish. Awesome, mate. Says it, Joe Webby, and cheers all says side of it. Nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all